Under the gleaming dome of Earth's International Interspecies Training Compound, a cluster of alien students adjusted their translator nodes and scanned the unfamiliar atmosphere with a mix of apprehension and arrogance. Each came from advanced civilizations, polished and pristine, where ecosystems were engineered, not survived. Yet here they stood, on humanity's home turf, a planet so volatile it had been designated a death world by the Galactic Concord. A tall, willowy being with iridescent scales shifted uncomfortably. "This place smells uncontained," she muttered. Another, broad-shouldered and armored in exoskeletal plates, snorted. "Typical human exaggeration. Deathworld is a title they wear like a medal." The humans, meanwhile, wore cargo pants, weathered boots, and grins that didn't reassure anyone. Sergeant Tamsin, their assigned guide, leaned against a crate of emergency supplies with the casual confidence of someone who'd fought off more than just wild animals in her time. She tapped her data pad, which blinked with a file labeled Safety Orientation, Required. "All right, Space Cadets. Before we hit the trail, here's the rundown." Her voice was light, almost teasing. "Don't wander off. Don't touch anything that looks cute. Don't assume anything without fur is harmless. And if it has more than 6 legs, just scream and hope someone hears you." There was an awkward silence. One of the aliens, a sleek, gelatinous scholar from the moonworld SYH, raised a tentacle. "Is that humor or a procedural directive?" "Both," Tamsin replied. "Everything here bites, stings, or poisons. Including the plants." A nervous ripple passed through the group. Their own planetary training had covered dozens of biospheres, but Earth remained elusive in simulations. It changed too fast, evolved too wildly. Their instructors had called it chaotic. The humans called it home. A tall quadruped delegate from the Vul Confederacy snorted through its facial vents. "Your dossier lacks scientific rigor. We have faced volcanic beasts on Myrick. Acid storms on Kethra. Are you telling us you fear rodents and trees?" Tamsin grinned. "Oh, we don't fear them. We just respect them. You'll learn why soon enough." They were led to an open hangar where field gear had been prepared. Lightweight breathing masks, toxin-neutralizing kits, repellents labeled bear grade, and for the humans, flasks of coffee. The contrast in preparation was obvious. The aliens double-checked calibrations and radiation shielding. The humans packed trail mix. One young alien from the crystalline territories of Jur leaned over to his peer and whispered, "They appear casual. Too casual. This feels like a psychological tactic." "It's not a tactic," came Tamsin's voice, sharp and amused. "It's called experience." The group assembled around a hovering display projecting Earth's biomes and layers: temperate forests, deserts, tundras. "You'll be in Zone 3, she said. Mid-risk woodland. No apex predators. Minimal venomous lifeforms. Should be a breeze." Minimal venom? That caused more than one translator unit to misfire. A few beings recoiled. One alien, bulbous and covered in fine sensory hairs, tried to recalibrate his threat gauge. It only gave back unknown variables detected, risk level indeterminate. Tamsin noticed and gave a soft chuckle. "Relax. You've got us. We've lived with this world since birth. She barks loud, but if you listen closely, she always tells you where not to step." They boarded transport carriers heading for the outer training zones. The terrain outside grew wilder, more organic, less symmetrical. The alien students whispered among themselves about the lack of atmospheric control, the uncontrolled presence of pollen, and the absurd fact that birds could fly without traffic regulation systems. One alien noted how nothing here was curated. The trees weren't spaced, the ground wasn't smooth. The temperature fluctuated unpredictably. Another commented that even the wind had personality. Still, they held to the belief that this was a learning opportunity, one where they, the technologically superior, would document and report inefficiencies in Earth's survival systems. Their optimism began to chip when the transports halted and the smell of damp earth and moss drifted in. There was a low hum of insects. One alien's eye lens fogged over in response to the microbial density. Tamsin clapped her hands. Welcome to Earth proper. Wild and unfiltered. Remember, stick close, follow instructions, and don't assume silence means safety. They stepped out onto the trail. No force fields. No bioshields. Just soil and sky and the unnerving sound of unseen life moving somewhere nearby. The final word came from the oldest alien scholar, who had so far been quiet. He turned to the human ranger and said, "Tell me honestly, why do you stay on a world like this?" Tamsin didn't hesitate. "Because it made us who we are. And if you're lucky, it'll show you who you are too." The forest rustled in welcome, or warning, and the group moved forward, not realizing yet that everything they knew about danger was about to be redefined. The first hour was filled with cautious steps and awkward silences. The alien students scanned the terrain with nervous precision, sensors extended, posture rigid. The forest around them seemed alive, not in the programmed, predictable way they were used to, but in a slow, creeping manner that made even silence feel predatory. Their instruments pinged constantly, alerting them to fluctuating electromagnetic fields, unregistered lifeforms, and erratic air pressure. A rustle broke the quiet. From the brush emerged a four-legged creature with wide, glassy eyes and branching antlers. The aliens froze. One raised a shielding barrier. Another began recording its approach for analysis. The creature paused, sniffed, then trotted away. Tamsin smirked, not even turning around. "Relax. That was a deer. Harmless herbivore." A nervous laugh came from somewhere in the group, short and uncertain. "Its eyes were too forward-facing for prey," one alien noted. "You're on a planet where prey sometimes charges," she replied. The group moved again, this time with looser formations. A small gray animal darted down from a tree and landed on the foot of a Jurian delegate. He screamed and levitated a full meter into the air. The animal, compact, fluffy-tailed, skittered up his leg, then off into the underbrush. 3 others activated defense protocols. "That's a squirrel," Tamsin called over her shoulder. "Curious, annoying, but not lethal unless you're a peanut." A gelatinous Saiyan kept scanning its appendages afterward, convinced it had contracted some microscopic toxin. 2 others debated whether to file a complaint about psychological exposure. They approached a clearing where remnants of human campsite structures remained. While the aliens examined primitive fire pits and weather-worn logs with academic interest, a rustling came from a nearby supply pack. The zippers moved. A clawed hand emerged, followed by a masked face with glowing eyes. Weapons raised. Alarms shrieked. The Vol delegate launched a high-frequency screech wave. The intruder flipped over the bag and hissed, revealing sharp teeth and nimble hands. Tamsin stepped in front of them, unimpressed. "Chill. That's a raccoon. Smart little scavenger. He wants your snacks." The raccoon grabbed a protein ration and bolted into the woods. The group stood in stunned silence. "It just stole classified sustenance material," one alien finally said. "And opened your bag faster than you did," she replied. No one laughed. Tension was mounting. The equipment they carried worked, but not in ways they trusted. Scans gave conflicting readings. Temperature mapping was unreliable. Even their directional beacons drifted slightly. Nothing here obeyed familiar patterns. One delegate attempted to project a safety zone radius. The forest simply swallowed the signal. No interference. No jamming. Just nature, ignoring technology. As the sun dipped slightly, the light shifted. Shadows lengthened in impossible directions. A buzzing swarm passed overhead, dodging sensor beams as if deliberately. One Saiyan reported a mild sting and immediately started a medical self-scan. "Bug bite," Tamsin said. "Might swell. Might itch. Probably won't kill you." The aliens exchanged glances. "Probably?" Then came the sound. Low, drawn out, like a moan dragged through trees. It echoed in ways that made distance meaningless. One of the exoskeletal beings locked its joints and broadcast a threat-level update to the group. The humans didn't flinch. "Win," Tamsin explained. Or maybe a mourning dove. They sound kind of like a ghost. A tall, feathered scholar from Olak finally spoke. Your planet operates on ambiguity. Is that intentional? No, she replied. It's just alive in more ways than your systems can model. The group pushed forward, quieter now. Their questions shifted. No longer skeptical, they sought explanations. Why do trees compete for light? Why does the same species of animal behave differently in different regions? Why does the forest make silence feel heavy? Because it doesn't care who's watching, she said. One alien pulled a data set from the air and sighed. There's too much noise in the environment. It defies filtration. Exactly. Tamsin nodded. Welcome to unpredictability. You can't filter Earth. You survive it. Something shifted in the group dynamic. The confidence they carried in the compound had eroded, replaced not by fear, but by unease. The realization that humans didn't exaggerate, if anything, they understated. As they passed the fallen log, another squirrel darted across the path. This time no one screamed, but every translator clicked on in anticipation. The walk ended at a riverside rest point. The aliens sat quietly, processing. No one recorded data. No one transmitted summaries. One finally asked, "This zone is considered safe?" "It is," Tamsin confirmed. The alien glanced at the churning water and the unfamiliar prints in the mud. "What does unsafe look like?" She smiled without humor. "Hope you never find out." Darkness didn't fall on the forest, it crept in. The alien students clustered near the fire, their glow panels dimmed by thick foliage and moisture-heavy air. Familiar starlight was absent, masked by moving clouds and strange atmospheric interference. Their vision aids struggled to adapt. Heat signatures warped. Audio sensors picked up everything and nothing. Nature wasn't quiet, it breathed, shifted, whispered in tongues none of their languages could translate. Something hooted. Sharp, rising, and far too close. A few startled beings turned toward the sound, limbs tense. Tamsin stirred her tea over the fire without raising her eyes. All. It meant nothing to them, just another cryptic designation. One delegate replayed the audio and asked if it was territorial or predatory. She shrugged. Both, maybe. Depends if it's hungry. The trees around them rustled, but wind couldn't explain all of it. A long, drawn-out rustle ended in something heavy landing on a branch, then silence. One alien scanned toward it. No heat, no movement, no explanation. A Jurian student, visibly agitated, stood up and announced they needed to perform a personal perimeter sweep to revalidate their environmental controls. Tamsin told him to wait. He didn't. He stepped out into the dark alone, scanning ahead with a wand-like probe that clicked with irregular pulses. Minutes passed. Then 5. The rest began murmuring. Tamsin rose, scanned the surrounding terrain with her eyes only, and took a flashlight. Stay here. An Olak feathered their necks in alarm. You're going alone? I know this forest. He doesn't. She vanished into the trees. The rest waited, twitching at each sound. Something snapped a twig. Something else moved in a circle around the camp. Every alien's translator activated at once. None could identify what language the woods were speaking. Inside the brush, Tamsin moved quickly. Her light stayed low. She ignored her radio. She watched tracks. The alien's footprints weren't hard to follow. He moved like he expected the ground to get out of his way. That mistake had already invited attention. She picked up speed. The forest shifted behind her. Not malicious, but attentive. She paused, narrowed her eyes, then turned slowly. At the edge of her light beam stood a mountain lion, watching with absolute stillness. Its muscles coiled. Its tail twitched. Her fingers moved without panic, unclipping a tranquilizer round from her belt. The lion took one step forward, then stopped. It watched her with the same curiosity the aliens had brought. She raised her weapon slowly, held her breath, and waited. Not all standoffs ended in violence. Not every threat needed escalation. The lion turned, indifferent, and slipped away into shadow. She found the alien not far ahead, shivering but intact, hiding behind a tree, scanning upward with no success. He opened his mouth to explain. She didn't ask. She guided him back. The others exhaled visibly when they returned. No one said a word. The fire crackled like a living thing. What happened out there? One finally asked. Predator proximity, she replied. You confronted it? I let it decide if I was worth the trouble. Their translator units glitched trying to process the logic. You didn't eliminate the threat? It wasn't a threat. It was a question. None of them understood. That night, sleep eluded them. The fire dimmed, but no one left the circle. The forest offered no peace. Sounds came in patterns that suggested intelligence. Wind hit in waves instead of gusts. Every shadow seemed to track movement. Even time felt skewed. Seconds dragged while hours vanished. In the early morning hours, a figure among them quietly muttered, "This planet resists classification." Another corrected, "No. It mocks it." Tamsin didn't sleep either. She listened, not to danger, but to balance. Earth didn't threaten without reason. It warned. It reminded. It educated in ways no synthetic environment ever could. One alien finally asked, "How do you navigate this? With no certainty?" "We don't wait for certainty," she said. "We move with caution and confidence. Fear teaches faster than comfort." A long silence followed. Another alien spoke, more slowly. "Your ancestors didn't dominate this planet. They survived it." She nodded. "And it taught us how to survive everything else." As dawn began to bleed through the trees, casting gold into deep green, the air seemed to lift. The forest grew less hostile, not because it changed, but because they did. They started to listen differently. Not to data, but to rhythm. The silence wasn't absence. It was instruction. The rain began without warning. Not a drizzle, but a heavy, sky-punching downpour that flattened grass and sent insects fleeing for cover. Within seconds, the soil turned slick, paths vanished, and sensor equipment short-circuited under pressure. Emergency shields sputtered. Alien gear wasn't rated for this level of unpredictability. Tents collapsed beneath the weight of water. One delegate shouted for assistance as a support rod snapped and came down on their shoulder. No injuries, but the panic spread faster than the storm. Lightning followed. Not delicate flickers but blinding forks that cracked across the sky and punched the ground with sound. The aliens instinctively clustered together, shields raised, voices raised louder. Tamsin barked orders without raising her tone, directing humans to anchor what they could and secure the edge of the camp. No one argued. They moved with practiced urgency while the aliens stood frozen. A loud crash rang out. One of the trees fell under saturation, its roots giving way. It hit the outer shelter zone, smashing a storage crate and scattering supplies. An alien screamed. Not out of pain, but because something had moved inside the fallen debris. A low grunt echoed beneath the rain. Tamsin's head snapped up. She knew the sound. Wild boars. Not the small, timid type, but the larger kind, territorial, aggressive, and very aware of food sources. Another grunt confirmed her suspicion. The boars emerged, two of them, soaked, eyes flashing. Their nostrils flared as they scented the broken food packs and the electric tinge of alien fear. One alien tried deploying a sonic deterrent. It fizzled in the wet air. The boars advanced. Tamsin stepped between the group and the animals, arms out, voice calm but firm. "Move slowly behind me. Don't run. Don't challenge. Don't act big." Too late. A tall, plated alien activated a holographic display meant to disorient predators. It flared bright and loud. The lead boar charged. Tamsin fired a flare gun into the ground. The light and hiss startled the animal for a heartbeat. That was all she needed. She grabbed a lit torch, swung it low, forcing it back. The boar bucked, turned, and retreated, but the damage was done. The group scattered. A Saiyan delegate slipped on the mud and tumbled down a slope. Another lunged after them, both vanishing into the ravine below. The rest shouted, but the storm swallowed their voices. Without hesitation, Tamsin secured a rope and called for volunteers. 2 humans followed. The rest stayed behind to restabilize camp. She descended fast, guiding herself by branch and instinct. At the bottom, she found them, shaken, not hurt, tangled in wet vines and panic. One had twisted a leg. She signaled for the second rescuer, and they worked in synchronized silence to hoist the pair back up. Back at the top, no one had moved. The fire was out. 1 alien sat in the mud, muttering to themselves, trying to reset their orientation module. Another ran diagnostic after diagnostic, trying to understand how their gear failed them so completely. As the storm began to fade, Tamsin stood over them, drenched but composed. She pulled her pack open, handed out dry cloths and thermal wraps. "This is what failure looks like when you rely too much on certainty." No one argued. They were exhausted, soaked, cold, and completely unprepared for how little control they'd had. "You planned for conditions," she said, kneeling to check the injured alien's leg. "We planned for everything breaking." The feathered delegate stared at her. "How can you function in chaos without collapse?" She answered without pausing. "We don't need perfection. We need flexibility. You build systems to resist collapse. We build ourselves to bend and recover." Another alien, normally quiet, muttered, "Your response to failure is efficiency. Ours is paralysis." Tamsin didn't confirm or deny. She just started building the fire again. The humans followed suit, drying what gear they could, boiling water for warmth, forming a rhythm the aliens couldn't explain but felt safe near. By nightfall, the storm was gone, but the memory wasn't. The alien students sat close to the fire this time, not to stay warm, but to stay connected. One of them broke the silence. "This wasn't a test of wilderness survival. It was a test of resilience." Tamsin looked up, flicked mud off her boot, and said, "Now you're getting it." No one asked what came next. For the first time, they didn't want to predict it. By the time the group returned to the compound, their posture had changed. Not just from fatigue, though exhaustion weighed heavily on them all, but from something quieter, acceptance. Dirt clung to polished exocets. Mud streaked decorative armor. Feathered mantles drooped under exposure. But none of them cared. No one attempted to clean their appearance. No one reactivated personal presentation modules. Vanity had lost relevance somewhere between the first panic and the final storm. The briefing room they entered now felt sterile in contrast. Climate-controlled, evenly lit, and filled with technology that once felt like power but now seemed like insulation from experience. They sat without being told. No one checked their recordings. No one launched debris streams. They waited. Tamsin stood at the front, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "So," she said finally, "what did you learn?" Silence stretched. Then the oldest of the group, the crystalline scholar who had spoken rarely, lifted his head. "Earth is not what we expected. It cannot be measured in variables or threat levels. It operates beyond containment. It refuses to be systemized." Another nodded. "We arrived with assumptions. We believed we were prepared. But preparation is not adaptation. Earth does not reward planning. It demands participation." A third added, "You do not control your environment. You move with it. Your survival is not through domination, but cooperation. Caution laced with courage." Tamsin didn't speak, only listened. A younger delegate leaned forward. "You weren't joking. When you said everything here bites, you weren't warning us to be careful. You were warning us to stay alert. Because fear, properly tuned, keeps you alive." "That storm," another added, "should have broken us. It broke our systems. Our order. But you didn't freeze. You adapted. Not through protocol. Through instinct. Through each other." The feathered Olak spoke next. "We mistook your humor for ignorance. It is armor. You laugh because you've learned the cost of panic. You remain calm not out of arrogance but necessity." Tamsin finally stepped forward. And do you still think Earth is exaggerated? No, one replied. If anything, it's understated. This world isn't dangerous because of what lives in it. It's dangerous because everything does live in it. At once. Without warning. The Scion, whose form now shimmered unevenly from biostress, spoke with uncharacteristic steadiness. Our worlds were engineered to support us. Yours forged you to survive it. It shaped your nervous system, your patterns, your culture. You did not shape the world. It shaped you into what we feared you might be. Another alien spoke slowly. We used to believe humans were reckless. Now we understand, you're resilient. You don't dismiss risk. You accept it, manage it, move through it. The crystalline scholar added. And you are not fearless. You are very aware of danger. But instead of avoiding it, you walk beside it. Tamsin nodded. Because fear doesn't vanish. It evolves. If it doesn't, we don't. The group sat with that for a moment. Then someone asked, What happens next? She gestured to the exit. You go back. Share what you've learned. Just don't soften it. Don't sterilize it for comfort. This world is real. So are its lessons. One alien stood. We thought we were coming to study a species that tamed its death world. But you didn't tame it. You learned to thrive without ever pretending it was safe. Another muttered. We don't thrive at home. We maintain. That difference explains far more than we wanted to believe. As they prepared to leave, one stopped beside Tamsin. We have war simulations that model human unpredictability. None captured this. It wasn't your firepower. It was your tolerance for entropy. She offered a faint smile. Entropy's just life without a manual. The ship's bay doors opened, revealing the polished steel of the interstellar vessel that would return them to order and comfort. But something unspoken lingered in their expressions as they stepped aboard. They were leaving with new data, but more importantly, with discomfort that would take longer to process. In the final report filed to the Galactic Concord, the crystalline scholar would write, Earth is not merely a death world. It is an active intelligence of chaos and equilibrium. And its inhabitants are not anomalies, they are its finest reflection. To understand humanity, one must understand this. They did not overcome nature. They became fluent in it.